Yeah, hello and welcome to our webinar series, the Office Hours. My name is Felix. I'm from the TTI team in Amsterdam. And today I want to talk a little bit about benefits of running the ThinkStack on premise. And for that, I brought a couple slides. We will talk about it for like 15 to 20 minutes, and then we will open up for questions from the audience. And yeah, I see Ivan, who has held the last office hour sessions, is also here. Good to have your support. Good to have you back. And yeah, let's get started with the presentation. Awesome. Yeah, same title. I just wanted to reference, if you have any questions later, you might review this recording, just shoot us an email at sales@thethingsindustries.com. Just to get everyone on one page, we talking about the ThinkStack. We talk about the Things Industries LoRaWAN network server, the so-called the ThinkStack. We have this beautiful architecture chart here showing an end-to-end solution for LoRaWAN applications. So you see here on the left, we see LoRaWAN devices. They would emit the LoRaWAN message being received by a gateway. The gateway transfers the message via a backhaul into the ThinkStack. So now we're talking about our product, which is the network server. It has a couple of components, which we marked out here. We're going to talk about them in a bit. And in the network server, the most rudimentary function is to decrypt the messages, format the messages, and forward them to your application where you finally create value for your customer or for your solution. This could be via integrations like webhooks or MQTT and like more general way, or you could use some of the templates we have available with our partners to directly integrate with your application. Now, today we said we're going to talk about the ThinkStack on-premise. In our branding, we talk about the ThinkStack Cloud and the ThinkStack Enterprise. In the end, it is about on-premise, is about who is managing your infrastructure or the infrastructure around the service. So the ThinkStack Cloud is, if you know our content, we talk about that a lot. This is our core proposition where we take the network server, we host it for you, we scale it for you, we set service up for you, and you can just get started, add devices, integrate with your application, and add 10,000 devices without letting us know, and it beautifully scales, and you just pay as you add devices. However, on-premise, as a general proposition, you would want to, for a couple of reasons we will dive into later, you might decide, look, I don't want the Things Industries to host the network server for me. I would like to run it on some infrastructure I am managing, I am hosting, and I am supporting. So that will be exactly the ThinkStack Enterprise, where you just take the product and you deploy it in your own infrastructure. When you're on our website, have an eye on it. The ThinkStack Cloud, we host it. The ThinkStack Enterprise is where you manage the infrastructure. So just to clarify that as well, compared to our architecture or to our end-to-end solution chart, the red box on the right is your domain, your resources and infrastructure. So here I indicated basically the cloud way. So from left to right, we would enter your infrastructure with the integrations. So the integrations would call your webhook, or the data is being published on MQTT topic, and then you can receive that data via that topic. And how it differs now, so everything on the left we can provide, we can have a service level agreement, but if you go on premise, it will just change to everything now in the red box is in your infrastructure, and that's what you control as well here. So only like if you have like a remote setup, then and your infrastructure might be behind your firewalls, you will see here only the gateways are usually outside the firewalls, have some sort of backhaul, like be it cellular or Ethernet, and then you can run everything inside your infrastructure. In some edge cases, you will find that also gateways are within the infrastructure completely, like be it that you are the internet service provider or you are an industrial site, so you can run everything on your local network and you don't have to talk to the outside world for whatever reason you might want to do that. A couple we will cover in a bit. Just have here in, yeah, no, I'll go into detail in the next slides. So I'm separating reasons or benefits into two things. One is control, and the next slide is about operations. And I want to cover a couple of key aspects and benefits here. So if you run it on premise, you control the resources, meaning you can decide to add more resources early on if you want to scale up, or run it on like smaller environments. You will see that you will find tutorials on even run the ThinkStack on a Raspberry Pi, right? Like not recommended for production at all, but it's possible. You manage the infrastructure, you manage what resources you're allocating to it. Key management is a big topic. You've seen in the previous chart that the join server is a component within the ThinkStack. However, you can also run an external join server and provide the root keys to the ThinkStack via that external join server, and therefore create an extra like layer of security via tokens to protecting these root keys. Maybe you want to use your own join server, you want to run that within your firewall as well. You might want to decouple that from the ThinkStack, so you can do that here. Or you might want to run the LNS, the LoRaWAN network server on your own infrastructure and use an external join server from a manufacturer. All possible, and that gives you a bit more control over security features. Location is a big one. We have GDPR, we are based in the EU. I know that some countries, some tenders require all the infrastructure to be within the boundaries of a border. Yeah, run it on your infrastructure. You choose where your infrastructure is, be a data center, be a cloud location, cloud provider location, be your own servers. That's all possible, and that's what you can control here. Another a big control bit is not only where the root keys are, but also every LoRaWAN message is encrypted. So there are different layers of encryption and security as along the end-to-end path of such a LoRaWAN message, from being a LoRaWAN message to being decrypted, formatted, and then forwarded via an integration to your application. If you run the ThinkStack on premise, everything with decryption happens behind your firewall. That is also sometimes a requirement from especially industrial providers. Before we go into the operations benefits, if anything I'm being too technical or you want to would like to have some clarifications on, feel free to write it down in the chat, and I can go into covering questions either as we go or after the presentation. Operational benefits. If you want to run the ThinkStack on premise, you have a few more advantages and flexibilities, which you pay for with comfort that we cannot operate it for you, so we can't take that work away from you. You've probably heard, if you've been around the ThinkStack and the Things Network or the ThinkStack Cloud, you've heard of the device repository. So whenever I have to register a new LoRaWAN device, I have to tell the network server a set of parameters. Yes, the root keys, they are mandatory for every device, but also frequency plans, firmware configurations, right? Like there are a lot of configuration data which you have to provide to the network server. We maintain a repository, a database with a lot of configurations maintained by us, the manufacturers, the community, to make it easy to select. I have a new device, I select the vendor of that device. From a further filter dropdown, I can select the device type. And most of the data which are generic can be just added automatically, and you don't have to do that. Now, the part of that configuration is the payload formatter. So translating the LoRaWAN message into a JSON, and JSON have always the key value pairs. And sometimes you might have a different standard, for example, in your IoT setup using different technologies. Temperature should always be temperature in your JSON and not shortened or abbreviated as TEMP. So you might want to have your own formatters, or you want to maintain a database of your own formatters. You can, yes, also in cloud, you can use the command line interface. You can change formatters and control them. But if you want to have a central space and maintain a database of like the 10, 20 device types you use in your setup, you could run your own device repository, your own version of the device repository, which you solely manage and control. Same join server I've added here again. It makes things a lot easier if you use an external join server, which you could plug into the ThingStack Cloud. But of course, if you want to have that as well in your own infrastructure and separated from the network server, it's possible. And you then control also fully the access of, for example, a manufacturer loading in root keys, making them available to your application. Something which came out in the last, fairly recently, is the storage integration. So typically, the ThingStack would basically funnel data through. So like data are being received, decrypted, formatted, and handed over to an application. We've added the so-called storage integration, which allows to retain this data in the ThingStack, so it can be queried later instead of just relying on that data flow which is there. So typically, our users would use the storage integration if middleware or the application is being updated and had a bit of downtime. So once the application is back up, I just query the last hour of data, check in my database what has been missing from my maintenance window, and you can make sure no data has been lost and you have a complete set of information. Of course, that storage integration retention is being controlled, can be controlled by you completely once you, with the resources you want to add to it. So if you want to make it weeks or a month of retention, you can do that if you want full redundancies over certain time periods. So yeah, you can here also control how you want to use it by adding more resources to it. And the last bit again, for an application, and we hear that actually quite a lot, that even the operator of the infrastructure shouldn't have access to the keys and the root keys. So if you want to have complete isolated solution, and like you want only keys and anything which has to do with decryption happening behind your firewall, running it on premise is your solution here. Having said that, not even our, like we will provide you a license key for running the ThingStack Enterprise yourself, and that key is sufficient to run it. So there is no communication back to our servers to validate the license, etc. So you could run it in complete off the grid. You can run it completely in isolation without worrying that there is some sort of communication to us or another third party. So that again, that is something which from operations, of course, if your license expires, you will have to update that. But you basically get provided a new key from us. There are a few more details which we have listed on our website. The link you will find in the description. So there are different deployment options. You see here 2 columns, Cloud and Enterprise, with some details. I just took a screenshot of a few, so you see like something obvious. Of course, if you run a server on your infrastructure, you can choose the domain name and white label the console, but these are more, let's say like less technical features or options to do that. So you'll find a full list of differences in features between the deployment options on the website. Again, link in the description. How you can get started, right? Uh, we still suggest, like, if you're new to LoRaWAN or if you're new with your application, like it is there, it is a there is a lot of complexity to getting started with a solution, an end-to-end solution, to find product market fit, make development, R&D projects work, POCs work. So if you want to do one thing after another, we still recommend you start testing and developing with the ThingStack Cloud. Not only because we will manage the entire infrastructure and can guarantee uptime, we will make sure that all the components are available. And also our support can access the ThingStack Cloud with your permission, your tenant there. So with your permission, we can really help you get over the first humps in an R&D project or in your solution quite quickly. And then later, because it's the same product, it is quite easy to even migrate to the ThingStack Enterprise. So you basically like add complexity as your project is evolving. Let us do the heavy lifting of the hosting and management. And once you know your project, your application is working, you can then migrate to the ThingStack Enterprise and also take on that package of managing that infrastructure. Yes, exactly. Then second. Okay, I thought I had another slide. I don't. I just wanted to reference how to get started. The ThingStack, you can go to our website and find on virtually every page the Get Started button, and that will allow you to sign up for the ThingStack Cloud as a discovery version. You can set that up without our input, so just sign up and we provide you your personal tenant. With some limits, you can do that for free. And if you want to test the ThingStack Enterprise, we can contact us as well. I'll put the link again in the description to our sales team, so to myself and my colleagues. And we can provide you a key and explore like what deployment option for on-premise is the best one for you. Just to also here have in mind, on-premise is not necessarily on-premise. The ThingStack is available in multiple deployment options. So for example, on-premise, you can run it in its easiest form as a Docker version. We have also an ECS template if you prefer running it in a cloud environment. Plus, we are now rolling out the Kubernetes version with Helm charts, so you can also run on-premise or in your cloud infrastructure. You can run highly available and highly scalable versions of the ThingStack yourself. Again, if you want to manage the infrastructure. As promised, yeah, that's already it from my presentation side. Quite short overview of how that differs. If you thought, okay, there were a lot of features on the ThingStack here, which went over my head, please feel free to go back and find on YouTube recordings of the previous office hours. We've gone down in detail on the CLI, on how to migrate from different other services, on other features, what are the benefits. And or the best way, of course, is always to just sign up for the ThingStack Discovery and find out for yourself and explore and just get started building your first project with it. Great. Yeah, at this point, I would open for questions. If you have any questions about the ThingStack Enterprise running it on premise, feel free to write it in the chat, and I will be here for a few more minutes to see and answer any possible questions. All right, I don't see urgent questions popping up. Again, I will be here for another 2 minutes, but if you said, all right, I think I got it, I'm busy exploring the links from the description, Let us know if you need help. Sales at thethingsindustries.com. My colleagues and I are happy to support. Share what you're working on, what sizes of deployments are you looking at, and then we can help out with exactly finding the best solution and the best setup for your requirements. Yeah, if not, if you want to see more of our materials and content, the best way is to sign up for our newsletter. You will find that as well on our website. So just subscribe there. We will keep you informed about news from solution providers, partners. We have our conference coming up in September, and more social media content where we go out. Also, yeah, feel free to share ideas on what you want to hear next from us, and we are happy to accommodate that and create more content around your interests or topics of interest. Hey, we have a question coming in. Yeah, so the question is, could you describe efforts, skills required from IT, OT, local staff to install and operate TTI on premise? Yeah, I think great. It's also being mentioned here in the video feed. So yeah, that is always a very good question. We have deploying a Docker image. These are like fairly standard operations for someone who already works and handles solutions which are being moved between infrastructures. So you can do that. We have a video on TTN as well where you can just follow on how to install the ThingStack via the Docker version. And our support team is also quite versed in helping with that deployment. So you can get standard or priority support where our colleagues will jump on your questions within a couple of hours, 24/7, to help you find out where you're stuck. And especially in the beginning of projects, we highly recommend that. So while I would argue, yeah, most of them are standards, but then you heard me mention Kubernetes, and that there are of course like this running joke or gag within the developer community that it's not as easy to just deploy Kubernetes. So yeah, our support team can help out. And I highly recommend, especially for the first month, to use some of our support subscriptions just to have that insurance that it's going smoothly. And if you run into problems, we can minimize the time to debug and resolve that issue. So yeah, Andras, I hope that answered your question. If not, feel free to send us an email with your project outlines, and we can provide you some links to documentation, which you'll find on the thingstack.io, where we document exactly how to install the ThingStack and different versions of it. So you feel free to review that and come back with some specific questions to us and our team. Great. I think we had a few minutes to post some questions. Again, if you review this recording and we're not live anymore, feel free to send us an email at info@thethingsindustries.com or sales@thethingsindustries.com. And I also put the link to our contact form in the description. So if you want to use that, feel free to contact us and reach out. We're always happy to help. I'll see you for the next office hours.